the New York Islanders move on to the second round of the 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs after defeating the Washington Capitals in 5 games. We'll be taking a look at the series, how teams look moving forward. Obviously, the Islanders continue their playoff run. The Capitals, a little bit of worriness in their room heading into this offseason. We'll be taking a look at all that in this video. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe down below. And let's take a look at how the New York Islanders defeated the Washington Capitals in 5 games. So we have a Metropolitan Division matchup between the New York Islanders and the Washington Capitals. Now, coming into this series, a lot of the talk was back in the 2014-2015 playoffs where the Islanders would be looking in this series to get some revenge on the Washington Capitals, as the Washington Capitals pretty much closed the Nassau Coliseum for the first time for the New York Islanders. After that season, they would move to the Barclays Center for a couple of years. They would, of course, come back to the Coliseum, but the Islanders would like to get some revenge against that Capitals team. Not to mention the coach behind the bench in that Capitals series back in 2015 was the New York Islanders head coach right now, Barry Trotz, and this would be an opportunity for the Islanders to avenge some demons in this series. Looking into, another thing we were looking at heading into this series, the New York Islanders just came off, taking care of business against the Florida Panthers, beating them in a best-of-5 series. They beat them in 4 games. A pretty solid series for the Islanders. They looked good coming into this series. Unfortunately for the Washington Capitals, you could not say the same thing. The Caps did not look at all good heading into this series. They just looked out of place. They did beat the Boston Bruins in their last game in the round-robin series where they played 3 games. They only won that 1 game against the Boston Bruins. The other 2 games they had lost, and they didn't really look that good in those games. Not to mention Braden Holtby did not look very good, not only in the round robin, but even at points in this series, and is a huge reason why the Caps are packing up their bags today, getting out of the bubble in Toronto. So, another key thing that we're looking at, the last time that the New York Islanders went past the first round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs, so they went to the second round of the playoffs in back-to-back years, was back in 1980, in the 1983-1984 season, where they lost to Wayne Gretzky in the Stanley Cup Final against the Edmonton Oilers, and the 1984-1985 Stanley Cup season. So basically, in 84 and 85 is the last time the Islanders not only made the playoffs, they won a round and got to the second round in 2 consecutive seasons. That was that long ago. It's been, do I want to do the math? 25 years. I'm not the best with math there, but maybe even 40 years at this point. I mean, yikes. Really disappointing there for the Islanders. It's just been a lack of success, lack of making the playoffs, lack of winning in the playoffs, and I noticed that here. So, yikes. It's been a long time for the New York Islanders, but the good news is the Islanders are, moving their way back up, which is a very good sign, and we saw that in this series here against the Washington Capitals. So let's get into this series. So the first game of the series, it's been a little while now, but it was Game 1 where the New York Islanders defeated the Washington Capitals by a score of 4-2. The Washington Capitals actually came out first. They got the first 2 goals of the game. TJ Oshie in the second period got things going for the Washington Capitals. Kind of started to set the momentum for that game, or so we thought. Jordan Eberle would come back and get a goal. Anders Lee, Josh Bailey, and Anthony Beauvillier, who has looked so good in these playoffs. One of the top point producers at this point during the playoff season. Anthony Beauvillier, very solid numbers. That would be his 4th of the postseason because he scored 3 during their qualifier series against the Florida Panthers. Then we head to Game 2, and the Islanders kept that momentum going. They continue with beating up on the Washington Capitals. At this point, the Capitals were starting to get frustrated very visibly. The New York Islanders defeat the Washington Capitals by a score of 5-2. The New York Islanders outshot the Capitals 32-25 in that game 2. Ovechkin got on the board very early in that game, within the first minute, and it kind of set the tone for that first period, and the Islanders were kind of reeling a little bit. But besides that, the Islanders looked very solid in that first period. They ended up not letting that goal get to them, which was another factor we saw for the Islanders. The discipline from the Islanders in this series against a very gritty, rough-housing Washington Capitals team, which we're not really used to seeing, but there are a couple guys on that Capitals lineup that I wouldn't mind saying a few words to them if I saw them out in public, but probably not, honestly. They're a little bit bigger than me. But all kidding aside, the Islanders in the second period would start to get things going as we see Nick Leddy and Matt Martin put together goals, 2 goals in the first 5 minutes of that second period. That's a huge momentum boost for the New York Islanders. But then the New York Islanders take a stupid penalty, and they find themselves down a man, and who gets the goal? Alex Ovechkin. Ovechkin, his second of the game, and now we're starting to get worried because now the first 2 games we were talking about, the first game we were saying, Ovechkin didn't get going. That's the good news. He really hasn't been able to get his juices going and his momentum. If he hits his stride, he can win this series for the Washington Capitals. So now we're sitting here in the second period of Game 2, and we're a little bit concerned because the Islanders are struggling to handle OV in this series now. Not to worry, though, because not even a minute later, Brock Nelson puts in a goal, and the New York Islanders reclaim the lead, a 3-2 lead for the Islanders. Cal Clutterbuck and Lee get the other goals in the game, and the New York Islanders win Game 2, 5-2. Now we move on to Game 3, where it's a closer matchup, and the shots were pretty close, 34-23 in favor of the New York Islanders. The Islanders find a way to get things done. Anders Lee on the board for the 3rd time in this series. He's got a goal each game. He scores for the Islanders. The captain gets on the board. Kuznetsov gets one in the second period. Again, another power play goal. That was a theme for the Islanders. The Islanders were really good 5-on-5 against the Washington Capitals in this series. A huge reason why they dominated at most points in this series over the Caps. But you give them a power play. Kuznetsov, a beautiful shot up over the shoulder of Semyon Varlamov. No chance for Varlamov. Somebody really should have been taking that shot away from Kuznetsov, but he gets the shot off. Pretty deep. He was up at the top of the circle. It was a nice shot by Kuznetsov, and the Capitals tied the game. So all that momentum the Islanders had in the first half of the game is vanished because we're still tied because of special teams. And then we head to the third period. Not much really happens, kind of back and forth. This game was destined to go to overtime. And who gets the overtime game winner? Matt Barzal on, some would say, a questionable offside. It looked very close. Real time on the TV, it actually looked like he was offside. But looking back, it did look like he did drag his skate. And the Islanders get away with a victory in that one. And this was the huge momentum that the Islanders needed, because now at this point, this was the turning point in the series. Not the Islanders really lost the series at any point, but if the Capitals win that game, it's a 2-1 series, and the Capitals would end up winning Game 4. Now, who knows if they ended up winning Game 4 based off of this game, but the Islanders would have been reeling a little bit, and we might be talking about a completely different series right now, where we're talking about this series going to 7 games. Ovechkin's got things going. Luckily for the Islanders, Matt Barzal gets things finished, his second of the postseason, and the Islanders win Game 3. Now we move on to Game 4, and the Capitals are up against the wall in this series at this point, and something we've seen from the Islanders where they've been very good in the third period, but even in that Florida Panthers series, we saw in the early part of the third period where the Islanders struggled mightily in those first 10 minutes. Brian Boyle and Mike Hoffman, I think, scored, and that was their one game where the Florida Panthers ended up winning. Going into the third period tied, and they ended up getting those quick goals. We saw that in this game because Pajot and Barzal scored for the Islanders. Kuznetsov and Ovechkin scores again, and then Ovechkin gets another one. He gets his 4th of the game, or his 4th of the series, his 2nd of the game, 3:40 into the third period. And that would be it for the Capitals. The Capitals would hold off the Islanders. They would play the Islanders game better than the Islanders. Dump and chase, keep the Islanders crest in front of you, and the Capitals were able to find a way to get that one. And that was a huge win. Braden Holtby actually looked pretty solid in that game. He kind of won that game for the Capitals. He did give up 2 goals, but he was good enough, and that was really what the Capitals needed. Now we move on to Game 4. So now the Caps once again on the brink of elimination. And the Islanders did the same thing they did in games 1 through 3, and that was dominate, try and stay out of the box. The Islanders were able to do that. The Washington Capitals actually outshot the Islanders 21-17, so the Islanders only had 17 shots on net. Now remember, the last 2 goals were empty netters, so Holtby's save percentage is not that bad. He wasn't giving up a goal each, for 4 shots. There were 2 empty netters at the end for the Islanders, but Beauvillier gets things going. He gets the first 2 goals of the game. He gets one in the first and the second. He has 6 on the postseason now, a very solid campaign here for Anthony Beauvillier. You head to the third period, Nick Leddy and Josh Bailey, two really nice empty netters from at least halfway across the rink. The Islanders are able to put them away, and the New York Islanders win this series in pretty convincing fashion. I mean, the score 4-0, it was a little bit closer. I would say, it was a 2-0 game, but the Islanders find a way to get things done. The Capitals have a lot of questions coming into this offseason, though, because, you're going to be losing Braden Holtby. Ilya Samsonov, I would assume, will be the starter for the Capitals. And based off of how the last two postseasons have gone, I don't think they really want to re-sign Braden Holtby at this point. You have some issues on that blue line. I think that was a problem for the Capitals in this series. They do have a couple of gritty guys. You've got guys like Tom Wilson, Garnet Hathaway, Radko Gudas, and Brendan Dillon. I think those four guys are a pain in the ass, and we saw that in this series against the Islanders. They could do that at points, but they just don't have the depth right now. Even up front, I mean, they remind me a lot of the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers have that top line of Huberdeau, Hoffman, and Barkov. And then, you have the same thing here with the Capitals. You have Kuznetsov, Backstrom. Well, really, it depends. They have a little bit more depth than the Panthers, I would say. Maybe I'll retract that a little bit. Because the top line, you've got Backstrom, Ovechkin, and Oshie. But at points, we saw Wilson there. We saw Ovechkin there, Kovalchuk there, Verana. All those six guys pretty much were interchangeable in that top six. But it seemed like when the Russian line was out there, Kovalchuk, Kuznetsov, and Ovechkin, they seemed to be a threat at that point. TJ Oshie looked really good in this series. His back checking, his ability to play, I think the Capitals are going to hold on to him. He has that big contract, so I don't think he has to worry about that. But there are definitely some issues with the depth of the Capitals up front and their blue line. I think their blue line is their biggest weakness. Carlson did not look 100%, especially on that second Beauvillier goal where Bailey just absolutely walked Carlson. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if he was expecting the shot or what happened, but that was a mess for Carlson. There were a couple things I really didn't like about Tom Wilson in this series. I think he was, again, call me a Homer Islander fan, whatever, I don't care. He had a couple of instances where I'm really, I used to at least respect what he does on the ice. He's an agitator, this and that. You look at the second Beauvillier goal, he scores the goal, what's his name? Dale Hunter did, back in the day in the 90s. I mean, he scores the goal and he pushes him into the post. I mean, come on. I'm sorry. I know Cap fans out there probably are like, oh, he was just finishing his check, whatever. I don't care. At least you're admitting that he hit him. Again, there were a couple of instances like that with Wilson that I really wasn't a fan of. And, I hope it's not a reflection of his character as a person. But I'm really, after this series, Tom Wilson is not at the top of my list for people that I would consider a friend. So that's it for this video. Comment down below. What do you think of the New York Islanders moving on to the second round? They'll be playing the Philadelphia Flyers or the Boston Bruins, depending on how the playoffs work out. If the Flyers lose to the Canadiens, it will be the Bruins. If the Flyers win tonight, we will see the Islanders up against the Philadelphia Flyers. So that's it for this video. Comment down below what you think. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.